Hello again and welcome back to another Blackhawk gameplay video here. Today we have for you the, well, we've got the Blackhawk Delta, the Blackhawk KU Delta. There's been some discussion, some people in the comments about whether this is just like something that means Kurita, something like that maybe, or Blackhawk Kurita unit maybe, the KU, the mysterious KU, a question I may have to forward one day to somebody in the Battletech offices and see if they'll respond to an email. Who knows? Maybe they will, maybe they won't. We'll get back to you on that one. So yeah, we've got another ranged combat emphasis configuration here. This one obviously pumping out a little bit more damage potentially than the C variant, as this one has a LRM 20 with a ER large laser. So much higher damage, especially when you look at it from playing on the tabletop, where if you get a good roll with the missiles, you've got a decent chance of chopping off a good chunk of armor and then some ER large laser damage. Now, I did suddenly, I'll tell you, while I was recording this, that I had a phone call while I was playing this match, and so I was sort of trying to move around and not just stay near the spawn area, because you know what it's like in MechWarrior. You always get somebody who's going to have a quick peek at the spawn, see if there's any you know, AFK players. So yeah, I was trying to move around there, and then while I was on the phone, but I think that phone call ended, which was quite lucky in that respect. Anyway, so this one, good potential damage. In MWO, not bad actually. Again, the nice thing with this is with skills and, you know, some of the quirks that the mech comes with, and like heat isn't as much of an issue for the other configurations like this, because it gives you the ability to just have a much more staggered fire rate, but it's giving you more emphasis on accurate fire over just being able to just spam fire. I'd still say the Prime is the best version when this thing comes out for C builds. You know, it is worth picking up just for that, because it's an Innisphere Omni, so it's got that going for it. But it's also the fact that you've got a machine that is more than capable of doing some good damage. It plays into a certain element of the meta builds of having a lot of energy hard points, relatively fast, jump jets, all the good stuff like that. Even its armor isn't terrible for what it is. It's not great. It's still a 60-ton heavy, which means it's probably on average got less armor than a 55-ton medium, but does at least have the ability to sort of bring a decent mix of weaponry. So yeah, I don't mind this version. Again, it suffers from the issue of all OmniMech configurations. There's no real background write-up for why it was built. Again, for the Innisphere side, I would have thought there would have been a bit more descriptive sort of elements about why each configuration would come about. For instance, did the Kuritans have like a sort of committee of veteran MechWarriors who were brought on board, for instance, to give their opinions on what would be needed, especially in a machine that, you know, presumably would be going up against the likes of the clans, and also, you know, the Federated Sons. What kind of configurations would Kurita prefer to have? So did this deconfiguration come about because there was a consensus that having a mech that could just engage at long range with missile fire be important for X reason, as compared to the Charlie version? Like, was that a long-range urban fighter, or was that meant to be used in more hilly terrain, that kind of thing, where its jump jets and its Gauss rifle would be more useful? Or the idea that the Gauss rifle would be useful, the C configuration would be more useful on, say, planets that have extreme temperatures, where it wouldn't overheat but could still pump out long-range damage. You know, that kind of thing. Was this one better for use against vehicles, for instance, because vehicles are less likely to have things like AMS, and it means that you can do a more decent spread of damage against clusters of vehicles, as opposed to a mech, which might be a bit more maneuverable. Many little things like that they could have written in. So I don't know, but whatever. I guess whatever works as a little narrative there for I guess each individual why this particular one came about. I like to think that in the case of House Kurita, this would be a configuration that I could see a Lance Commander using, where they can still use the speed of this Blackhawk to be able to stay close enough to allies that they can still be able to command, but at the same time they can provide fire support to their lance mates with the ER large and the LRM, and have the benefit that they'll be able to basically move away if things get deadly, or if they if they realise that someone's discovered that they're the lance leader, they become a prime target. So it gives them the ability to back off because they're engaging at long range. Maybe that's the reason why this one exists. Who knows though? The other weird thing is that as an OmniMech, it doesn't actually come with Kurita's patent-pending C3 master or slave system, which is a bit weird. Also an unusual terms, the master and slave unit. So yeah, obviously in MWO, it's got decent ammo. This match was pretty fun, actually. I'm glad that I got through this one without the phone call ruining it, because this was a real nasty sort of movement battle. It started in the sort of low ground and then moved up into this sort of central section where it looks like the other team just kind of gave up on fighting for the middle ground, and I guess they tried to bring my team closer to the fight, but they weren't taking that invitation, and the ones who didn't sort of cluster up ended up getting picked off. And yeah, then it gets to this sort of last sort of, well, let's face it, what always happens when you end up in a match like this, it just becomes a case of running around looking for the kill, sniffing around, and everyone just starts scrapping with each other essentially to try and get the kills. And then you get teammates like this with the person who is in the assault mech or something, who's, I think this is a Night Star if I remember correctly, who is got a rotary build, and he just left his team, took all of his weight and all his armor over to a far end of the map, and has just been trying to snipe the whole time. And he's just like, how does this help the team? It's either, in that scenario, it's either his team would have carried the day and then he would be there near the end with his near fresh mech fighting, or he ends up in this situation where his team ends up losing and he's one of the last people, and all he's done is just linger around the edge of the map and not do anything the whole time. I don't see the point in this style of play. MechWarrior Online, I think, throughout its entire history, has worked almost exclusively as a title where either small groups work together to focus on a single target, or the whole team moves as a flock of birds that react to the lead one, and they all shoot the same target. But ultimately it comes down to who is the most exposed and whether they become the primary target. And once that happens, once those first couple of targets fall, that's when the rest of the match becomes a case of just, the team just get eaten, and one team just has the momentum. It's all about that kind of momentum. There's the early skirmishing, obviously, where some people will be caught out, they'll be at different ranges, but once the brawl starts, and one team has clearly got the advantage in the numbers in one location, plus positioning in some cases, that's it. You end up with a victory. Before the match is even halfway through, you know who's going to win this. You play the game long enough, you can kind of feel it when it's going to happen, when you realise that the opposing team or your team is just such a bad position that there's no way that they can, that you can't really pull this back now. And at that point, you are just fighting for points. Maybe that's what happened with the Night Star player, but why was he all the way at the opposite side of the map from his teammates? When if he had been sort of in that middle ground of the map, he may have been better off. I don't even know the player's name, so I'm not like singling out the player themselves. It's an odd position. I've never really understood it. We saw it in the last video with members of my team with the Cauldron Ball and the Phoenix Hawk with long range weapons, just firing from a hilltop, and it's like, yeah, you're gonna get damage and stuff, but unless there's an event where it's get X amount of damage, why are you doing it? Well, what's the point? You just you're wasting everybody's time, and you may have actually turned the tide had you been in the brawl, where your weapons do max damage at close range. So yeah, or at closer range anyway. Yeah, yes. I'm aware that obviously some weapons don't work at point blank range. We're also the last person, who was a Marauder who had the incredibly rare event where all of their limbs are attached, but all their weapons had been blown off, which is super fucking rare. I'm so glad I actually caught that. I do lock onto him at an earlier point in the match. You get to see a Marauder completely intact with no weapons, all been critted out, But that was the Blackhawk Delta. I actually really enjoyed it as a configuration. I don't think many people would who play it normally, but there you go. And we're hitting the outro, so have a good one, everyone. Thanks for watching, as always, and have yourselves a good week. I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.